I think we can all agree that this cycle's been slightly different from a structural standpoint. It's actually still very similar to some moments in history past, like we've talked about. But it's been very BTC front heavy. It's been very institutional heavy. And even Charles Hoskinson himself has acknowledged that this cycle is different because it's going to be led by institutions and not retail. And so sometimes you have to ask yourself these questions. Is there actually some hidden manipulation going on, not just in terms of altcoins, but especially in terms of ADA? And I want to show you guys something interesting that I stumbled across and was thinking about. So again, if you guys haven't already, show your support for the channel down below. It's been growing like crazy, and it's all because of you guys. Now, I will say that, ADA is still obviously very far away from its prior all-time high. That's something that people tend to dog on ADA about, to try to beat it up about. But yet, despite that, it's had some of the biggest developments, some of the biggest advancements, some of the biggest pushes in interoperability, big partnerships, huge integrations. I mean, there is actual use-based partnerships that are being put into place for Cardano right now that the market seems to be sleeping on. But then you have to ask yourself these questions, right? Because we've had some pretty big news along the way. Is there, in fact, some manipulation that is suppressing the price of ADA? So I was just looking at something regarding Grayscale this morning, and this really got me thinking. I was looking at all these different single asset trusts that Grayscale has. You see ADA, you see Avalanche, Bitcoin Cash, BitTensor, Chainlink, Dogecoin, and so on and so forth. And you might notice that there is not a single asset ADA trust that Grayscale has, which I thought was kind of strange, especially seeing as in the diversified trust that they have, these large cap funds and smart contract funds. ADA is in 50% of these. So why is there not a single asset fund? And I thought to myself, oh, maybe it's because there's a spot, ETF filing. Nope, that wouldn't be it either. Dogecoin, XRP, right? So is there actually this secret suppression of ADA so that institutions can accumulate in a very cheap manner, so they can buy up all they can get right now while retail isn't paying attention? And the answer is probably. I mean, ADA is probably not the only asset that we're seeing this in, but I think it's kind of surprising that ADA has been as quiet as it has, despite having the news that it has. And I think sometimes that suppression kind of gets a little bit out of the bag. And what I mean by that is, for example, take a look back in March when there was that huge announcement surrounding ADA being a digital reserve asset. There's a reason why ADA exploded more than any other asset that was mentioned during that time. It's because there was huge suppression, huge short interest trying to hold ADA back, and boom, got a pop. It blew through the top, right? Now, obviously, it did come back down like everything did. ADA was actually the asset to hold these gains the longest out of even, XRP and others, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that right now, there's a lot of crap going on that we're all not aware of as retail. We don't have access to a lot of these behind the scenes funds and what's taking place in terms of OTC balances and stuff like that. And it would not surprise me if right now we're seeing institutions and enterprises to some extent manipulate the market in a way that they can just keep essentially suppressing retail and trying to accumulate while prices are in fact cheap. Now, it sucks. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But that also leads me to this point, and that is that when they finally are ready to allow the market to send, it means it's probably going to send pretty quickly. And why I'm saying that is we've talked about, ADA supply many times before, and the fact that there is this huge removal of supply from exchanges. I think a big part of that probably is institutions. They're buying right now while people aren't paying attention. Now, what happens when you combine a huge group of people that want to see some insane gains on price with a community that has major conviction? You get some pretty big booms in terms of price. There is very thin liquidity between here and the prior all-time high. And what that can cause is ADA to hit some pretty aggressive price discovery. That's why I think it's kind of wild when people, I even saw this yesterday after we talked about the DeepSeek information. I find it kind of interesting that people say that, oh yeah, $7 ADA can't happen in 2025. It's not going anywhere and blah, blah, blah. The same stuff we hear all the time, right? But in fact, we have a setup that is extremely conducive for that to happen just because of how aggressive the runs can be. Now, understand that when we talk about, hitting a new all-time high or hitting $7 ADA, that doesn't mean that ADA has to hit $7 and stay at $7. I want to remind everybody that the prior all-time high for ADA, guys, look how long ADA was above $3. Didn't even close a daily candle above there. People forget that a lot of these all-time highs, they're wicks. They're not sustainable, right? That's why in this market cycle, when we've talked about, ADA hitting $7 to $15, if it hits $15, $15 is probably a wick, and it probably comes back down to $9, right? If we hit $7 and $7 is the top, we probably come back down to $5 within like a couple days, right? That tends to be the way these cycles work. And I want to remind people that obviously only one person sells the top, only one person buys the bottom. That's why I don't try to get cute in these market cycles, because, I definitely don't want to be the person to sell the bottom to the person buying the bottom. But the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of factors at play right now. Yes, this cycle has been very institutional heavy. And right now they're doing whatever they can to scrape together what assets they can before the masses get into the market. There's going to be some go time. And like I've talked about in other videos, it's going to be when they control a larger portion of the supply, when they have all the front ends built, when they control a bunch of these exchanges. There's a lot of crypto services that are being put into place right now by these larger entities, and people are ignoring it. But the thing is eventually people are going to take notice. They're going to be scrambling. And by that time, it's probably going to be too late. So these are just some of the thoughts I was having this morning. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think that this big manipulation and suppression is taking place in terms of ADA right now? Do you think that is here in 2025 still, we're going to see big adoption take place where institutions are going to allow this to happen? So appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Show your love below. Catch you guys in the next one. Take care.